Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and a very good morning, professors, doctors, lecturers, colleagues and friends. On behalf of the School of Pharmaceutical Sciences, University Science Malaysia, I would like to welcome all of you to PPSF USM Career Pathway Talk Series 2021. This talk is an annual event organized by PPSF since 2019. We have brought forward speakers with different backgrounds to talk on important matters regarding career pathways for academics. We are honored today to have three glorious Sifus who have willingly invested their precious time to be with us in our program today entitled Navigating Through Academia Wilderness with Glorious Supportive Sifus, GPS. This is a sharing session from mentors to mentees by our amazing panels who have vast experience going through the challenges and difficulties in the academic world before becoming successful as they are today. Ladies and gentlemen, let me first introduce our three panels who are here with us. The first panel is Professor Dr. Muhammad Nazalan Muhammad Najimuddin. Assalamualaikum, Prof. How are you?
Waalaikumsalam. Good, thank you.
Good. Okay, Prof. Nazalan is a professor in microbiology and has recently retired after serving USM for 29 years. Our second speaker is Professor Dato' Asma Ismail. Assalamualaikum, Prof. Dato'.
Waalaikumsalam. Morning,
How are you
everyone.
doing?
Okay, Alhamdulillah.
Okay, so Prof. Dato' Asma is currently the president of Academy of Sciences Malaysia and honorary professor of Institute for Research in Molecular Medicine Inform USM. Our third panel is Professor Chemist Dr. Nur Hadiani Ismail. Assalamualaikum, Prof.
Waalaikumsalam.
How are you today this morning?
Fine, thank you, Amira.
Prof. Hadiani is a professor in chemistry who is currently the director of Ataur Rahman Institute for Natural Product Discovery UITM. I believe everyone is excited to listen to the esteemed speakers. But before I kick off our discussion, there are some housekeeping announcements that I wish to make. Number one, if you have any question, please post in the comment chat box and I will read your question during the Q&A session at the end of the talk. Number two, a link for your attendance will be provided in the comment section. So please complete the form and e-certificate will be emailed to you shortly after this event. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let's start the ball rolling. Our first question is dedicated to Professor Dr. Hadiani. Prof, as we know, the term lecturer may be defined differently depending on the area or country. As such, the responsibilities may also differ. It may only give the connotation of giving lecture or in other words teaching, thus it may refer to anyone. Prof. Hadiani, can you define who is a lecturer in the universities from your point of view? Do you think the current role of a lecturer has changed from the previous decades or centuries? Prof, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Amira. Yes, I think this is a very, very important question that at one point or another, we need to ask ourselves. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me for this session, and I feel very, very honored to share what little experience I have. UITM may be of a different landscape than USM, but nonetheless, I think we are carrying the same mission towards educating the future generation. Let me just begin by recapping my early days as a lecturer. Coming back from abroad, I landed a job as a lecturer in UITM. That was way back in 1988. So I have served UITM for probably 33 years. And back then, as a fresh graduate, you're not trained to teach or even to lecture, but you bring with you your experience in the university itself. So at that time, it was only classroom teaching. Okay, because there was no research in UITM, and I was not even aware of research. Okay, but the mission is that you are an educator. Okay, the mission is to educate the future generation, and I do not mind being described our job as teaching, because to me I am much more comfortable being a teacher rather than a lecturer, because lecturer is like you're giving lectures, but teach is about the students. It's not about you as a person, as a lecturer, but it's about the student. So this whole business to me is not about us as a lecturer, but it's about what knowledge do you impart to the students. So knowing that, I think we can really broaden the scope of how we approach teaching. So but of course, this was 30 years ago. And 30 years, in the last 30 years, we have seen a lot of changes in UITM. Definitely, it's very obvious we changed from being an ITM to a university, and then a university that was just teaching, and then we struggled with where we want to go, and then came in research, and then came in all the other stuff that the university is supposed to do. So this change and this learning curve in UITM is very, very huge. So but then alongside with that, it's our students, how the students that we are teaching has changed from 30 years ago to what they are now. Okay, and there are many factors that's affecting this change, all the technological advancements, all the things in our environment, all the social influence, everything has changed. So in teaching, we have to change, okay? Because we cannot teach as if the students were 30 years ago. And all this, I think, has played a very, very big impact on the way how we do our job as a lecturer. But to me, if you start with the mission of teaching, educating the future generation, there's not much you can do wrong. In fact, it is a very a job that is very satisfying. I mean, I could not really describe how I felt, how my feeling was when your dean, Professor Habibah, introduced me to her friends as ini cikgu I. Because she was one of my first students in the UITM Northern Consortium programs many years ago. So when somebody actually acknowledges you as your teacher, that means you have made an impact on the life of that person. And what more when I see a former student who has been so successful, so it makes all the things that you do worthwhile. And this does not happen once, okay? It happens again and again because you have a rolling number of students that you touch your life with. So I think this is really important to have in mind. And the fact that things has changed now, we have to touch the life of our students differently in order to affect the teaching, because teaching cannot be accomplished like it was before. So now I think we need to play more of a role of somebody who facilitates students acquiring knowledge, because we cannot be imparting information. There's so much information already out there. Okay? It's about knowledge. Okay? It's about shaping their minds. It's about sparking new ideas. It's about facilitating the students how to solve problems, because that's what it's all about. The future generation needs to solve a lot of problems as we are. Okay, so this role is taking a bigger shape. especially now in the world that is so connected, so much information that's available out there. So it is never done before that we need people who can think clearly, critically, but more importantly with integrity, who can make decisions with integrity. So all this has to be embedded now in our teaching besides the subject matter. Maybe I think that's where I stop first for this round. Amira, I'll see what others has to say. Maybe I will interject something later. Okay.
Thank you very much, Prof. Hadiani. Indeed, the role of a lecturer has changed from at least 30 years ago, whereby we just teach and educating, and now our role is actually facilitating. And actually, I have a goosebumps just now when Prof. Hadiani said how teaching has been so satisfying, and seeing how your students grow and becoming important people uh, uh, in the years to come. So it's very satisfying. Our next question will be directed to Prof. Dato Asma. Prof. Dato, in recent years, the paradigm shift in academics has become a hot topic in Malaysia. Many parties are emphasizing the universities to focus on the impact creation rather than just knowledge generation, as mentioned by Prof. Hadiani. The saddening truth is that most of the time, lecturers are being put in the central point of this discussion without proper guidance. Many lecturers, especially the young ones, are often lost or drained out in this debate. In regards to this phenomena, what are the current expectations from a university lecturer by the community, the industry, and the government? Prof, the floor is yours.
Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera and a very good morning to all the panel speakers this morning, and to Amira. Thank you for inviting us this morning, and also a very good morning to all the participants who are listening in today. Thank you for the question. I'd like to continue where Prof. Hadani mentioned just now. When she first started out, we are talking about teaching. Now we are talking about learning. And we are no longer teaching, we are facilitating. And the current thing that we are looking for is that did the student learn? It's not about whether you are teaching okay or not okay. The question then is about learning. Learning is about outcome, and outcome is about the impact. And because of that learning, that's why the student like Professor Habibah maybe will remember the lecturer concerned. Okay, so basically that's what I wanted to say and expand on what Prof. Hadani has mentioned this morning regarding this change in paradigm. But first things, let me get something right here. It's not about a change in paradigm. It's a change in the way we now need to do things, what we should have done, but we did not do. And that is creating impact. And what we have done so far is creating academic impact. But what we need to do now is to create impact beyond academia. So what I'm trying to say here is that this paradigm about creating impact is not a new KPI, it's not a new norm. It is our core business as a lecturer, right? So lecturers, basically, we are supposed to create new knowledge, okay, and then we are supposed to disseminate this knowledge. And then there's the third part, we're supposed to translate this knowledge to benefit society and also to benefit industry for wealth creation and societal well-being of the country. Basically, this in essence is your academic journey while you are in the university. And basically, when you first start out, you create knowledge, and you create this knowledge together with the graduate students, together with the students. These are the students that you nurture. I prefer to say nurture rather than train, because we train animals, but we nurture human beings. So if we see our students as a human being that is growing, that we are shaping the minds of the future, we nurture them. So we create knowledge together with them, especially with these postgraduates. And then we disseminate knowledge. And we disseminate knowledge in the sense that we want to engage with our peers, we want to engage with the people, we want to engage with society regarding what is the knowledge that we have generated. And this is by publication, by the talks, like seminars, webinars like this now, and writing of books, etc. And the last part that we need to do is, after we have generated the knowledge, this is about wisdom. What have you done with the knowledge that you have created? And this is where you now translate that knowledge now into products or services that can now create wealth to the country or enhance societal well-being of the rakyat, or the society at large, right? Now, this is what needs to be done. But the sad part is that you have been bogged down by, or drained, as you say it, or lost, as you say it, by this word called KPI. And the KPI at the moment is not emphasizing on impact, but rather emphasizing on output. And this is like publications, books, the number of graduate students you supervise, as a number of keynote speeches that you have done, etc. That you have been bogged down by all these outputs requirement, that basically now you are probably too tired to move to the next level, which is creating impact with the knowledge that you have generated. So this is the third part of your role or your responsibility that usually is not done properly. So as I said, being impactful, or rather being doing things that is of impact, is not a new norm, or it's not a new KPI. It is what the industry, the community, and the government are expecting from you. All right, because when the rakyat gave you money to do the grant, they are asking what can you benefit from what you have done. So basically, again, about translating that knowledge to create impact to the community. The industry is also saying, okay, we pay taxes, so we also want to see what is it that you have done to help move, because our country is still 98.5% SME, and we are not, and our companies in Malaysia is not yet into using of indigenous technology, which we need to now bring into to the industry. And the government, when the government also give you grants and all that, they are also expecting the impact, or what have you done to now move as a nation builder for the country. So you may ask the question, hey, hello, I am now in the university. I'm doing all these publications. Am I not creating impact? Well, basically you are creating academic impact, right? But not impact beyond academia. So what the community, the industry, the government is asking you to create impact beyond academia. But unfortunately, in the university system, based on convenience or whatever, you are measured and rewarded based on output, based on academic impact, but not based yet, or even if the university has that kind of portion or weightage for contribution to society, for contribution to the industry, the number of marks is not high enough, right, to make a change in the paradigm. So basically, you now see there is a mismatch between expectation from the university that says for you to produce that KPI so that you can now create high age index and high citation, which is basically for your own glory. But the community, the industry, and the government, when they give us money to do research, to generate new knowledge, is expecting that we now do something to improve the situation in the country. So you see that seemed to me like a misalignment, or a misexpectation between what the university is asking from you and what the community, industry, and the government is asking from you. So this is where I think we need to now come to reality, because during COVID and post-COVID, research worldwide is now moving to impact, whether you like it or not. So that is why the Malaysian Grand Challenge grants are all now asking for impact, right? And so Malaysian universities, I think, need to now get out of this ranking game and perhaps move as well to the true north of the university, which is to be the pulse of the community, to be the pulse of the nation. That means to be able now to benefit, use the knowledge that you have generated to benefit the rakyat. So maybe this is where we need to go now, all right, and move in this direction so that we now close the innovation gap between the industry and the university. We close the gap between university and also society. So to do all this, we need to go beyond academia to create the impact or the outcome that is now expected of you. So what I'm going to say to you now is that doing all this, creating of impact, is actually your amanah or your responsibility as a lecturer. So for a Muslim, an amanah means that is a high responsibility, because even since I'm now at UIA, so I have to give you some usrah. Basically, amanah means, because when you die, God will ask you three things, right? Anak yang soleh, sedekah, and the third one, knowledge that is of benefit to humankind. It didn't ask you how much is index you have, how much is citation you have. It asks you what is the knowledge that you have done that has benefited mankind. And Mark Twain is also saying, even Einstein is saying also the same, knowledge that has not benefited humankind is not good knowledge. So this is where we as a lecturer, we have this ability to be able to do that. So why aren't we? Not everybody can now be able to change the knowledge that they have generated to impact, but we are in that situation. So why aren't we doing that? So basically, this is where you say your academic journey, right, that you have to go through. And of course you were saying, OMG, what is she saying? I have to do impact now, I have to do teaching, I have to do research, I have to nurture postgraduate, and then I have to create impact, all this when I'm young, under 40. No, everything has its place. All right, everything has its place. You cannot achieve all the things that I say overnight. So that's why you have to plan your life, plan your academic career. You need to do this phase by phase, all right? And you need to climb the ladder step by step. So this is where we say, okay, you now say, what is the guidance? All right. So I'm trying to share with you what is the guidance. First, as an early career researcher, this is like before you become an associate professor, or even at the early stages of associate professor. Basically, you need, in a university, ladies and gentlemen, you need to be first a domain expert. Whatever you got your PhD in, you got to be a domain expert in whatever that you want to be. So basically, publish. This is something you need to do. Write articles, give talks, whatever, get awards or whatever. But you need to be a domain expert first, because in the university, if you are not a domain expert and you cannot say if you cannot show domain expert later on when you want to be a university leader, you will not get RESPCT, right? As Aretha Franklin says, respect is very important in the world of academia. So to me, if you now say, oh, macam mana nak publish when I cannot go into the lab lah, postgraduate is not there lah, and MCO is there lah, I'm now in fasa 1, I'm now in fasa 2. Let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, do not use COVID as an excuse not to do research. Right? You can do many things, and plus the government has already said that if you need to do research in the lab, you can always go into the lab, but follow the SOP, get the number of people that need to go into the lab. Okay, follow all the SOP. But the thing is, while you are in this stage, in the young stage, this is where you gather experiential learning. This is where you learn to write books, you do micro-credentials, you listen to icons like Professor Karim Alias, who's now teaching you about the new ways of teaching and learning, so that now you emphasize more on learning. You can learn about interactive online programs, etc. So this is the time that you be creative as a lecturer, and then you learn about all these new modes, etc. And you now understand and champion flexible education, and learn about like if you are into research and you come back and you know that you are only into certain aspect of technology, but to go forward you need artificial intelligence, you need to learn about the new disruptive technology technologies. So this is the time, this is young time, right? So you learn about all this. It's a time that you use also to retool, to upskill yourself wherever necessary. And this is also the time that you can now say, okay, I would like to test run. What is it that I'm going to be comfortable with? Am I going to be able to work with the industry? So you try to see whether you can work with the industry, or you try community engagement, or you try both and see what is it that make you comfortable. So this is a lot of opportunities that is there as an early career, right? And when you start to go to middle career, like associate professor, this is where you start to create network and linkages, all right, so that you can move. If you're doing research, you move your research from to at least to prototype development. Or if you are a clinician or something, you come up with a new service or something, or you come up with a new product, etc. So and this is the time you now move from registering yourself to give talks in a conference to now see whether you can be invited as an invited speaker, or you can be invited as a plenary speaker. So this is the time. So what I'm trying to say here is that when you get to a certain stage in your academic career, this is where you need to be present, okay, and be heard at the right time and at the right place. So this is where you get to know people. This is where networking and linkages is very important. This is where you need to know who your mentors are, who your sponsors are, who your godmother, godfather are, so that you now know and be able to now allow them to open the doors for you. So this is the time also that you nurture your graduate students. Now, uh, um, this is a time where you also begin to show leadership potential, maybe at the school level or the curriculum level, and then start to move up. But when you start to gather this experiential learning, this experience that you have, all right, be a voice of reason. And this is how, and learn as much as you can to contribute at the national level, because now you're an associate professor. See whether you can start to contribute at the national level, and then you start to move your research now to create impact. And then, and perhaps now if offered leadership at the school level, or leadership at the university level, then you begin to take it up, right? So at the senior level of professor, you are already now influential enough to now move beyond academia. So you see, when I'm talking about academic impact, there are different stages of your academia that you require this academic impact. And that's why kenaikan pangkat should now allow for this kind of gradation in the qualification of kenaikan pangkat, so that you now learn as a professor, you now learn to move beyond academia. You see, nobody will listen to you if you're not a domain expert. I mean, how can you be giving all sorts of instruction to orang kampung and all that when you also yourself is half baked? So that's why there is a need for you to be able to be a domain expert first before you become a frontliner to meet with the other people in the community or the industry. So this is where you need to contribute your expertise at the national or international level, and this is the time also to now become keynote speakers, right? So you need now to become a mentor. Okay, when you are a professor, okay, don't keep all knowledge to yourself. This is the time when you become a mentor, or you become a sponsor to the younger generation that has a lot of potential for becoming a future leader. Okay, what's the difference between a mentor and a sponsor? A mentor is someone who can guide you. Every time you are in trouble, you call, you have a discussion over coffee, and you discuss about things. So that's a mentor. But a sponsor is a mentor and someone who can open doors for you. So to me, you need to have both. A mentor can be part of your support group, but a sponsor can actually open the door for you. And when it's important is that once the door is open, you are the one that's going to make a difference whether you can get whatever you want or not. All right, so you are the one that's going to make a difference, but it's very important to have people who can open the door for you. So when you, this is also the time that you now begin to take up leadership at the university or at the national level, because if you are still hungry and you become a leader, that is also not good, because you can't become magnanimous, because you want to say, oh, I have this opportunity, I probably need to take it myself. So when you become a leader, You need to now say, okay, give way to people who deserve. You become the last one on the list. So can you afford to do that? So if you can't afford to do that, don't take up leadership as yet. And when you are at the professor level and you have things to contribute, this is where you now aim to be a role model or icon for the university. So in short, Amira, what I want to say is that if you need guide and the step by step of movement, you know now that at the end game is to create impact. But we need to disseminate, we need to generate new knowledge, disseminate knowledge, and then translate that knowledge into impact. So if you want to now say, okay, what is the expectation and of the community, the industry, and the government? If I were to paint a roadmap of your career, so you start out become a lecturer to associate professor to professor of the university, and when you do that, this is where you also start to pick up and become a university leader or even a national leader. But not everybody can be a university leader. I mean, there are only 20 public universities. If you want to be number one, only 20 of you can be number one. But if you are a domain expert, like a professor like Professor Nazalan and Professor Hadani, if you are a domain expert, this is the time you can now also move at the national level, be a domain expert to that people. You can talk about what your area of expertise to help masyarakat, domain expert at the national or even at international level. But the end game of your academic journey is to hopefully become a public intellectual. So that, Amira, I will stop now for the question that is being asked.
Thank you very much, Prof. Datuk, for the explanation. I think it is very much clearer now what are expected of us, and we can see the timeline and the journey that we have to go through in order to create impact beyond academia. KPI is one thing, but impacting the community is even more important. Ladies and gentlemen, let's move the discussion towards the promotion tracks. Our next question is for Prof. Nazalan. Prof, as young lecturers, we know that we can get promoted to associate professors, and those with excellent achievement can be further promoted to a professor. Can you enlighten us, Prof, on the different tracks available, and what are the items that we have to fill in the promotion basket? Are the promotion tracks available in USM similar to other universities? Prof, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Amira. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and very good morning. I haven't spoken for nearly 2 years, staying at home, hiding away, except for a couple of sessions that I had with Mardi and some researchers at USM. This is the first time that I'm forcing myself to speak, especially on a topic that raised goosebumps in me. That is promotion tracks as well as filling up the baskets necessary for promotion. It's a very interesting thing to raise because we need to know the history of USM on how we develop ourselves. And I think Prof. Asma might remember a very big meeting that we had in Langkawi around 1998, 1997. We stayed, all of us, nearly more than half of the researchers at USM gathered at Langkawi, where we actually sat down and put up a roadmap to pave the way for USM for the future. And that was in 1998. I remember that very well. And that's where we come up with the idea of we need to put up all the roadmaps, the blueprint to acculturate the university to become a good university. And subsequently, we were also, I was glad to be in that generation. We were sent to Institute Amuddin Baki. I don't know whether Prof. Asma, were you in that 3 or 4 loads of buses where we spent 3-4 nights?
Yes.
That was very crucial for me personally, and I think for a lot of people, and I'm sure it is for Prof. Asma and Tan Sri Zul, because Tan Sri Zul always sat at the front facing the lectures given by Professor Said Najib Al-Atas. And to summarize what Professor Najib said was that in the education world, it is all about the truth. It's all about knowing God. And it is all about wisdom around there. And that's how we learn our ilmu, how we practice it in terms of our ilmiah and so on and so forth. So that had a very lasting impact on us, I'm sure. And as you can see, after Langkawi and after listening to Prof. Said Najib Alatas on his philosophy of education, we set up a committee called the Acculturation Committee, chaired by Professor Zaharin. We met for nearly 2 years, and it was a ding-dong affair between the committee and the school board, where everything was discussed in detail, and we come up with this system that we need to do publication, we need to do this, and we need to do that. And that's how we created the research dean post. That was around, I think Prof. Asma was the deputy vice chancellor at that time, and that's where I got to know her very well. Meetings, morning, afternoon, evening, with a short break from Maghrib and continuing on till late at night, strategizing on what we should do as a university. And with that, we come up with this so-called, I was surprised that we call it the basket system now. But basically, it is a system where we try to shape or try to mold an academic towards being good in research, being good in community, being good in teaching, and so on and so forth. Over the years, it evolved. It evolved into two, what I call a very metricated system. And as all you know, once it evolved and being seen as something very metricated, there was always challenges and evil in that. And that's something that we need to understand. So that's how we come up with this system that we have for publication, associated with a number of points in terms of international journals, local journals, and mind you, local journals we regard as international level. Yeah? We never look down upon our local journals. And then in terms of service to community and so on and so forth. So when that question was asked on how to fill up the baskets, it's a very challenging thing. But I'm glad that I'm third in line in this forum, because Prof. Hadiani and Prof. Asma had already listed out all the things that I wanted to say, and I was busy spending time striking out the points that I wanted to say, leaving me with only a few points to mention in this particular forum. So now let's go back to the first thing that Prof. Hadiani and Prof. Asma mentioned just now. That is our role as academics. There's no two ways about it. Our role as academic has everything to do with knowledge and wisdom, and how to generate it, how to transmit it, and how to impart all those things, the wisdom, the experiences that we have to our students, so that knowledge and wisdom begets knowledge and wisdom begets knowledge and wisdom, so they can move out into this world and create a better world, not only for themselves, but for our society. But that is our core that we cannot run away from. Yeah? Now, back to acculturation that I mentioned just now. When we came back, Prof. Asma and I, around the late 1980s, around there, Prof. Asma, yeah? About 15 years ago. Yeah. We had nothing at all. There was no infrastructure and so on and so forth. But we were always reminded that we were employed, quote unquote, we were in a way invited to become part of the academic world to generate the knowledge, to create the discipline that is available. There wasn't any molecular medicine when before Prof. Asma came back. There wasn't any molecular biology and genetics when we came back, and so on. So that was basically the part that the agreement between us and the deanship and the school and the university. That is to create the discipline. And then we move on to the next decade, when we have all the facilities and so on, we are asked to generate good publications, good research, and so on. So all these are part of the acculturation process that we had to go through. Now, with respect to the basket that I mentioned, I just want to go straight to the point that you asked. This is something that I felt that is missing at USM right now, that all of us as young academics need to understand the acculturation part, and our duty as academic to create the discipline that we were employed for. That is basically the contract between us. That is basically in the US what is known as the tenure. That is, you are invited. I don't want to use the word you are employed in fact, because to me, all of us are ilmuwan, and ilmuwan can only be invited. So that's why the current matriculation system becomes ruthless in the sense that we are, in a way, forced to meet up the matriculated points that is required. But how, to me, it really depends on the stage. If you are brought in, invited in, to create a field that is new, then that should be your KPI. Over the last 5 years, have you managed, for example, set up a structural biology discipline within the School of Pharmacy? I'm just using one example. You might not, you cannot be assessed in terms of the number of papers, because it should be as per by wisdom, the progress that you make in establishing that discipline, because that is a discipline that's going to create new knowledge and so on and so forth. So how do you go about to do this? The system that we have right now, unfortunately, the way I observe, tends to individualize people. You tend to have the feeling that you have to do things yourself. You have to fill up all those baskets yourself on your own. That is a wrong approach, and there's a wrong understanding, because it is always a big task to open up a discipline. And you always need the help of your friends, your colleagues, the linkages that Prof. Asma and Prof. Hadiani mentioned just now, and so forth. So the first thing that you need to do is to basically emphasize your task in setting up the discipline. Let that become your focus, and the rest will come through. Yeah. As Prof. Asma mentioned just now, one of the things that I had to stroke away in there, that is, you have to make yourself known to your colleagues within the country and internationally, because that will be the motivation for you to move the discipline forward. So I'm just looking at some of the challenges, the truth, and the acculturation. You need to do things together. You need to do things together. I understand that, for example, the School of Pharmacy may be interested in personalized medicine as a field, and all of you can get together. And as Prof. Asma mentioned very early this morning, that we have a lot of facilities available within USM, within the country. Malaysia Genome Institute at USM, we have very good computational people. We have the human genome people, and so on and so forth. Get together. Do not feel that you need to fill the baskets, quote unquote. I hate using the word basket, yourself, but you do it as a group. And I'm sure some of those will remember the early days of USM when we set up the facilities for computational, we set up the facilities for structural biology, we set up the facilities for many things that weren't available. It was basically doing things together. So after you get your discipline established, things will come very easily. People would invite you to give talks. Mind you, during my experience, it's not only the universities or societies that invite you. You have people in the community who will invite you to give talks. school children wanting to know more about biotechnology, knowing to know more about the impact of genetics. Rotary Club constantly invite people to give talks to their members and so on and so forth. All those things come. But the main thing is that you need to focus on establishing your discipline and you yourself within that discipline. As Prof. Asma said, she used the word what? Your domain. Yeah. Your domain. That is very, very correct. And mind you, when we are invited to work at USM, it is always according to a blueprint that the school and the university have. Yeah? University would have the blueprint to establish this, to establish that, and so on and so forth. Yeah? Look at that blueprint. And I would also like all of you to remind the dean that your contract with the university is according to that blueprint. And if the university fail to give you facilities for all those, basically you cannot be asked too much in terms of meeting the so-called matriculated KPI. So it is basically all in there. All in there. It's all in the Senate. It's all in the school board, in the school minutes, and so on. I know that the School of Pharmacy, School of Biology, and all the other schools have their biannual, every 2 or 3 years, meeting on resetting the roadmap of the school. Follow that, yeah? And then find your domain, establish that, and everything will come to you. So the basket will be unconsciously filled, believe me. So I think I will stop there. Back to you, Dr. Amira.
Thank you very much, Prof. Nazalan. I'm speechless actually. It's just so inspiring that I have to think what I have to say after this. So basically, it goes back to the knowledge and wisdom. We have to remember that we are an ilmuwan, and the knowledge or ilmu that we want to impart is the most important thing. Okay, we have to keep that in mind. Thank you, Prof. Let's move on to Prof. Dato' Asma with another tricky question, Prof. Prof. Dato', with the current global situation and pandemic, there are so many uncertainties. Local universities are facing cuts in their financial resources, including research funds. On top of that, there are also many other challenges faced by the lecturers, such as competitiveness in terms of national grants acquisition, as well as lack of available scholarships, which translate into less postgraduate enrollment, as Prof. Dato' has mentioned earlier on. Can you give some advice to us on how to move forward in order to stay resilient in the difficult to come? Perhaps a little advice on how to handle these challenges, especially to the young lecturers with experience less than 10 years, would be very valuable. Perhaps there are also some strategies that Prof. Datuk can share with us so that the academics can work smart and not merely working hard. Prof. Datuk, please.
Okay, can you hear me? All right. So thank you once again for the question. It's always a pleasure to listen to what Nazalan has to say. There's a lot of truth in what he says. And what he's saying is that if the university cannot provide you with all the facilities, perhaps it cannot demand too much. But what I'm more impressed is the fact that we need now more than ever to work together. All right. It's not about individually fulfilling the basket, but how a team, a cluster is now fulfilling that basket and moving it together. And this time, as a cluster or as a team, it's not just about PPSF or the pharmacy or the PTJs inside the USM, but also together with the other universities, together with the industry, together with the community, moving what I call responsible research, which is human-centric, that we work with the quadruple helix, with the academia, with the government, with the industry, and with the all this, but human-centric. making sure that what we do, we put human in the center. So if you now talk about the current situation in the country, I think with all this political upheaval that we are facing, there's a lot of uncertainties for sure. But this is the time of VUCA, volatility, and on top of that, with the disruptive technologies that's coming in, there's a lot of things that is going to change, and we need to be agile in responding to all those changes. I think it's high time that we take charge of our life. All right, we cannot continue to lament about, okay, we cannot do research because the state of in our university, many of the equipment are old and dying, we cannot do anything. Or the state of, as I said, the state of situation in university, the state of situation in our lab, or the state of situation of grants. Grants are no longer available, and if available, is very small amount. And how can we work on a molecular if it is a small amount of money? I mean, it's ridiculous. So basically, ladies and gentlemen, I think we need to get out of complacency and use that smart PhD brain of yours to actually reach out to the potential grant funders that will pay for your research and your graduate students. So with the advent of COVID-19 and the economic crisis that we face, the political crisis that we face, I think you need to now say to yourself, you can no longer expect the normal things that have done pre-COVID. Okay, you cannot expect that to do research I need to wait for FRGS grant, or I need to go for experimental grants from MOSTI, or I need to go for this grant or that grant. That may not happen already, and basically it's time for you to pull your socks up and face reality. Reality is that tomorrow's grants will be lesser and lesser from the government. Okay, grants will mainly now come, will be lesser and lesser, because you know already, with the economic crisis that we face, and the amount of package ransangan that we are giving out, how do you expect the government to bounce back with lots more money for R&D and waiting for impact that doesn't come very much, right? So grants, basically, ladies and gentlemen, in the future will now come from philanthropists, philanthropists like Bill Gates, for example. But in Malaysia, more along the line of foundations or yayasan that will now provide you with this grant money, and with the industry. So remember, there are three ways to get grants now. One is, we have been always getting grant from the government, but right now we need to understand, we need to shift base now. As in the future, the grant from the government is going to get lesser and lesser, but we need now to know that the next grant funding is going to come from philanthropists, and it's going to come from the industry. So you need, of course, to do some, therefore, checking and reading to see what are the philanthropists' interests and what are the industry interests. And then you need now to package your proposal and reach out to them. So this is my key word of advice. Reach out. Now it's no longer about you sitting at your desk and trying to write grants and hoping the sky would open and the grant money would drop. It will not happen that way. You need to get out there. You need to reach out. Okay. So what do I mean by reaching out? So I want to share with you example. Under Academy Science, we have the Young Scientist Network, those under 40. Okay, the YSN ASM network. So YSN ASM had done what they call a Chrysalis Award. Now, Chrysalis Award is where they train, or rather, don't use the word train, they nurture the PhDs that is near graduation, how to be a good researcher in terms of becoming a future job creator rather than just becoming a job seeker. But even if you're a job seeker, to actually work with the end in mind. And we also nurture them to be able to communicate, because if you want to get venture caps to give you funds, or you want to get funds from the industry, it's important that you learn how to communicate and how to pitch your ideas or your plans, right? To either the venture cap or to the members of the industry. And they train these nearing graduation PhDs to do all these things for about I think the whole thing is about 2 months of training, step by step. And the winners would get postdoc positions in the university, or as they are telling about their ideas about the research project that they want to do. The panel that is listening to them are comprised of venture caps, comprised of academia, members of the industry, etc. And if the idea is good, it can also be funded by the venture cap in order for them to create startups. So this is like providing them with confidence to say that if you cannot be if there's no more jobs around as a PhD in the university, no worries. There is also the ability to now create startups. But if the industry is like what they are doing, what they are saying, then the industry can also hire them. So we give them a lot of opportunities at the panel to now say, okay, this student, what is the student best for? Because we have already selected out of how many people who applied, only 15 people or 20 people will be selected to undergo all this training. So if you now have the opportunity to contact to Dr. Chai, who is the chair of the YSN, and Professor Danny from Nottingham. Dr. Chai is from UM and Professor Danny is from Nottingham. What they have done is that they package. This is what I want to bring back what Nazalan mentioned just now, working together as a team, as a in a collaborative mode. They now reach out to the company Merck, right? And they requested for Merck. All these companies, ladies and gentlemen, this is the other grant ability. All these companies, they have CSR money, right? Social responsibility money. And because the companies now cannot touch base with the masyarakat because of the COVID and MCO and all that, the CSR money is there, and they need to now do something with that CSR money. So Merck actually, they packaged and they went to Merck, and Merck gave them 100,000 a year for 5 years. To do this Chrysalis Award training, because this is also like a CSR, where you now nurture the young PhD so that now they become potential CEOs or whatever, and create new startups for the country using indigenous technology, hopefully based on the discoveries and the knowledge that they have generated. So you too can do the same. The CSR money and the philanthropies are all available in Malaysia. And for real, during my time as VC, we got medical school $1 million to be able now to build a mobile clinic based on philanthropies. We package. We had several presentation, package it well so that the philanthropy is agreeable, and they gave money 1 million and to maintain the mobile bus, the mobile clinic, to help cataract, to help people who cannot walk with joint pains, etc. So this is the first. In fact, we have 2 buses instead of 1. We have 2 buses, one for a mobile clinic and the other one for physiotherapy clinic to help the elderly, to help the people who are in the community, etc. So what I'm trying to say as a challenge to Professor Habibah perhaps is to package help us to help you concept, right? So this is the concept that I'm trying to say. Help us to help you. We have a lot of people who have expertise. We can do a lot of things. Now help us to help you in what way? So if you go to the industry, help us to help you in what area? If you go to the community or you go to the philanthropists, they want to give money. In what area do they want to give money? And this is where you need to do a lot of studying before you just simply go to anyone and say, help us to help you. Cannot like that. You have to do some homework. You have to package. You have to work together. Okay. Again, how to package? Let me reiterate. For example, in post-COVID, you now know, and we all know, companies who do not have STI, companies who are not on STI platform, usually will not survive. Post-COVID or during COVID, you already see so many companies have already faltered, and they falter because they did not go on to the digital platform and they don't understand the need to use data. So now we know that in order for any company to be resilient and sustainable, they need to move on data. And this is and of course our companies being SMEs and some even the MNCs may not know how to do deep dive data analytics. And this is where you can now offer, you package now data scientists, people who are in artificial intelligence, people who can do computational biology, people who can do cyber security, people who data analytics, and especially people who can do cloud service expert, plus maybe someone from pharmacy in the different areas. Package it together, and then you now develop these packages of what you help us to help you concept, and give that to the industry, give that to the government agencies. My God, government agencies also have money. It's just that they don't know what is it that you know, and they don't know what is it that you can do. So this is where, as I said, rather than lamenting, I hate that word lamenting, this is a time for action. Get out there and reach out. So this is the word I want to say, because today's economy, as you know, is based on digital and based on green and based on biotech. So this is where, ladies and gentlemen, one thing I said to you: be a domain expert where you are reading journals, etc., etc. But if you now want to work together as a science pharmacy, or as a great team of or as a cluster, this is also, you need to baca, keluar sikit daripada out of the box, and start to read up about start to read McKinsey reports, all right? McKinsey reports on digital economy, McKinsey reports on green technology, McKinsey reports on where is medical devices going in the future. So you need to now shift basic it in your reading, so that now you start to now understand the global picture, so that when you package something, people will say, aha, you know how to answer 21st century challenges, and not stuck in the rut about your mindset about the last time that you had learned from somewhere somehow. So basically, this is where you gather people together to with new kind of reading to now be able to move forward. So once you get the grant, etc., from the industry or the philanthropy, this is where you now do your R&D, you do the research. But this time around, think, when you start to publish now, you start to publish with the name of the industry, you start to publish with the name of the kementerian, you start to publish with the name of the philanthropist. This now gets a new ball, and you know, this is an even better publication, because you are now showing concepts of collaborative effort, because in the future is about impact. Philanthropists will not give you money unless it is about impact. Industry will not give you money unless the people buy the product that you are saying, and to do that product, it has to be human centric. That's why I said in research of the future is about performing responsible research, whereby it is human centric, and at the same time the output is socially and society is acceptable and desirable by society. So this is where you now get out of the box in terms of the ideas that you want to package and then you offer. So I hope this will now get you the money to do further research. At the same time, while you're doing this, it will build trust, which is something that you need in order to close the innovation gap between the industry and the university, and also trust when you do community engagement to close that gap between university and the society. So and hopefully when you start to do this, because you are under 40, you can now, when you have that, build that trust, and maybe you then offer yourself to do sabbatical with the industry, or with the social enterprise perhaps, so that you can now see how you can help the community better. So and when you start to do this, this is where you create the rapport, you create the networking, and now you get better and better. This is part and parcel of experiential learning, so that now when once the bug bites, you know that you can now get a $1 million from one philanthropist, then maybe you can get another million, another million, another million. So I think the school now cannot be saying I'm dependent very much on what the sky will open, and whether you get FRGS, LRGS, or whatever. It's high time now that you pull your socks up and actually get out there, reach out to the company, to the industries, to the quadruple helix, and actually be able now to create a new kind of proposals. And of course, I have already spoken to USM about the 1010 My SDIE. This will be the technology drivers and the socio-economic drivers that will now be needed for the next 10 years. So you now know which technology to package, you now know which socio-economic area that will give, that government is giving priority for you to package. And the other thing that I want to say is that halal economy is a big game changer. People are proposing it to be a moonshot for the country, because everything on 1010 My SDIE, either from the technology or from the socio-economic, every part of it will move the halal economy for the country. So here is another new area, science pharmacy, because of the fact that you are doing everything the same, but now do the same thing but move into the halal mode. So this will create a new business plan. So that will be a new ways to do things, because there's a lot of funding on halal economy as well, a lot of funding on blue economy as well. So this is where you now start to shift base in terms of thinking, get out of the box, keluar daripada tempurung, and then see what the world, Malaysia is needing at the moment, and then move on that direction. So I stop that for now, Amira.
Thank you very much, Prof. Dato'. Listening to Prof. Dato' Asma has never failed to generate ideas and open the horizon for us. Thank you very much, Prof. Dato', for your idea and wisdom. It is getting very exciting now, I think. So our next question will be dedicated to Prof. Nazalan. Prof, one of the common advices that young lecturers would get when they started working in academia is to find a mentor. A mentor is meant to guide the young lecturer, the mentee, to become a good academic. As Prof. Asma mentioned just now, a mentor and a sponsor is very, very important. Hence, having a good mentor or a sponsor would be a blessing, but not all young lecturers have that blessing. Sorry to say, sometimes this blessing may also turn to be a curse for some young lecturers. Most public universities encourage a mentor-mentee system among the academics. In your opinion, Prof, should the mentor-mentee system in academia be adequately regulated to ensure all young lecturers to have a mentor? If not, what is your take on this matter? Your floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Amira. Another very challenging question, primarily because of the usage of the term mentor and mentee. I think all of you should realize that over the last decade, we had installed a system of recruitment in which you are maybe among 70 or 80 who applied for the post that you got. And we have quite a rigorous recruitment screening system, such that we know your originality, we know your independence, we know the background and the salasila of the supervision that you had, we know your discipline and so on. So I don't think using the word mentor and mentee is appropriate for any one of USM recruits. But on the other hand, anyone who is new in Penang, in any one of the USM campuses, into the faculty, will feel lost, especially having zero knowledge on the current scenario within Malaysia and so on and so forth. And I prefer a system where the senior professors and so on, something that we had quite some time ago, that all of them should be aware of the motivation, the spirit, and the mission of the school and the university to develop that bidang. And all of them should come in to help the young ones. And they should know the domains of the young ones and get all the avenues to help. And this is where last time we had the research dean system, but I don't think it should just be within the domain of the duties of the research dean. All the senior ones should get together, appreciate the domain, as Prof. Asma said, of the young ones, and then create a team to solve a certain problem that you would seek the money for through the philanthropies, or last time during Prof. Asma's and my time, we had the National Biotech Directorate, the ministries, and so on and so forth. You create the problem using the talent of the new academics that you have. And through the experience after getting the grant and so on and so forth, you build the facilities, you build the confidence, and most especially, you give the assurance that they are people of original thinkers. They need to be encouraged to think of the big picture. And this is very important because you don't enter science and you don't train a PhD student just to do technical things, mine, and produce a thesis that is defended. Those are technical theses as far as I'm concerned. It doesn't have any philosophy behind it. The philosophy is the big picture behind the thesis. And this is where, as I said, knowledge begets knowledge, wisdom begets wisdom. Doing things together, and here the so-called mentor and mentee that you mentioned are actually the duties of the senior professors. They should be wise enough to know the domains because they are the ones who wrote the blueprints for the development of the school. They are the ones who figure out that we must have, for example, the field of A, B, C, D, and E. And they are the ones who should now be getting the young ones together and facilitate so that they can get a grant. And through that, you nurture the young academics. Because with that, they will learn on the importance of thinking of the big picture. And as I said, through that, they will learn on how to impart all this wisdom and knowledge to the young ones. So that's all I want to mention. I'm quite allergic to the word mentor and mentee. We're not a school, we're not a technical college, we are a university, and all of you have been recruited as an ilmuwan, a first-class ilmuwan. Yeah? I interviewed all of you. So for 5 years, I was in the Senate, representative of pemilihan, jatuh kuasa kenaikan pangkat, and so on and so forth. Because at the end of the day, we want all of you to develop into answering this question. What is it that you should profess on to become an associate professor? And what is it that you have been professing on to become a professor? So get rid of the mentor and mentee system, but install the responsibilities of the senior professors to actually group together and facilitate in the form of a teamwork. So that's all I have to say, Dr. Amira.
Thank you very much, Prof. Nazalan. I think it's much clearer now for us that we should work as a school and not as individual. We should hold on that. Let's move on to our next question. This question will be dedicated to Prof. Dr. Hadiani. Prof, being a lecturer means that supervising a student is a must. It is one of the job scopes that need to be fulfilled by all lecturers. In this current situation with COVID-19 pandemic, conventional supervision is no longer applicable in most situations. A more creative measure should be in place to ensure effective supervision. Sometimes the supervision style may call for extreme measures. As an example, one of my colleagues said she once had a meeting with her postgraduate at 5 o'clock in the morning. Prof. Hadiani, if you can share with us some tips and tricks on student supervision and your view on how to ensure its effectiveness during this pandemic and continuous MCOs. Please, Prof.
Thank you, Dr. Amira. Yes, I am still supervising students in the lab. I'm still teaching in the classroom, so I think, let me share some of my experience. Yeah, but first of all, I think I resonate very well with what Prof. Nazana had said just now about mentoring. It's about responsibility of imparting the experience and guiding the young ones. So it's the culture and responsibility. It's not a task to appoint as a mentor or mentee. So I think with regard to supervision, this is the same. Okay, in supervision is also a way to teach, but you teach on a different platform in different manner, in a different way. And as an academic, I think supervision is the mainstay of your job scope. And very much when you are supervising, you'll be doing all of these tasks together at the same time, multitasking and everything. It includes building the subject domain, the science. It includes mentoring. It includes guiding. It includes facilitating. It includes generating ideas, networking, open the doors. It's all in one. So I think supervision is where an academic learn as well, not just a student, but as an academic you learn because you learn everything while you're doing your supervision. To me, it's about relationship that you build with the students, the trust that you have because you are embarking on a journey that for the student is going to be a lifetime journey, but for you it's an enriching journey. So this has to be made in such a way that it's going to be beneficial and pleasant for both parties. And it's an unwritten contract between the supervisor and student as well, that you are going on this journey together. So the relationship part is very important. Okay? Once you build the relationship, once you build the trust that we are in this together, then I think the rest of the challenge you can tackle. Pandemic is a real problem to research, okay, because you cannot enter lab and everything. But as Dr. Asman said just now, this is not an excuse. You can still enter the lab. You have to get the necessary approval, follow the stated SOP. You can still do the lab work, okay? But this is also at a time that we have a lot of technologies. Some of our instruments now can be controlled or can be operated remotely. So these are the new learning curves. So some experiments can still be done. Okay, and having the data, you do a lot of data mining, a lot of computer work, and all this can still be done if you are not physically in the lab. So I think for research at this moment of time, it is pushing us towards a steeper learning curve to use the technology to adapt new ways of doing things. So there is no reason why a relationship between a supervisor and a student get lost at this point of time, because there's still a lot of work to be done, even though remotely. Okay? And this is a time also for me, you can expand the experiential learning of the students. Sometimes in my own experience, students are very keen to do lab work. They do lab work, but sometimes they are not very comfortable trying other things. So this is a time also you expand for them to do other things. For example, let's take language for example. Okay, I'm sure supervisors will come to this pain of checking and editing your students' piece of work. Okay, it's a painful process to say the least. Okay, and this is a time during pandemic where you can actually inspire your students or motivate your students to take up language, read more, learn more, write more. Okay, so if this aspect can be improved, the rest can also falls very well into place. And with all the technologies that we have, like what we are doing today, an online platform, there is no reason why we cannot communicate with our students. Okay, it's so easy to do that now. If this pandemic had happened 10 or 15 years ago, that would have been quite a disastrous thing. Okay, but see, Allah telah susunkan sebenarnya. It comes, this cabaran datang ketika ini, but we also have the tools to deal with it. Okay, so I believe that it is not really a hindrance to supervision at this time of time. And another thing, I find myself even busier during this MCO than before, because now we are borderless. We have conference anywhere, anytime. We have talks, webinar, we can learn everywhere. Okay, so these are borderless. So this is also the time to get your students to involve in what you are involved in. For example, tomorrow, our society, the Malaysian Natural Product Society, is organizing. Our conference is tomorrow. There is the Asia Pacific Symposium on Medicinal Plants. So instead of being stuck in the lab, so we get our students to actually involve in this organization, because that is also part of the learning process. Okay, presenting papers and actually doing the organization virtually. Okay, which in the past we didn't have a chance to do this. So I think the pandemic, the MCO, is not a reason for student-supervisor relationship to suffer. In fact, it could take another turn of productivity, because it gives us an opportunity, it provides us a chance to learn new things, okay? To have new learning curves. And as Dr. Asman said, post-COVID things will be different. Okay? So it is really necessary to use this time to learn as much, because post-COVID things will be different. Everybody will need different set of skills to deal with academics, to deal with research, to deal with learning, to do our responsibility towards society, industry, and so on. So everything will change, and this is the time that we learn. So we keep pushing, we keep doing what we need to do. Okay, based on the fundamentals that we already built before. Okay.
Thank you, Prof. Hadiani, for the input. Indeed, we have to be more creative, more flexible, and at the same time, we have to try to nurture our students to be more flexible as well. MCO and pandemic are not a hindrance for research work. We have to remember that. Ladies and gentlemen, we will move to our next question. This is our third round and our final round. Our next question is dedicated to both Prof. Dato' Asma and Prof. Nazalan. As the pandemic wears on, lecturers are continuously working from home, in which they are managing hundreds of students using the online platforms. On top of that, the shutdown of research lab for many months has caused a huge wastage of research funding and student time. Yet, the lecturers are still expected to deliver the university KPI and grant requirements. Recently, we are also facing an allowance cut down, as well as the uncertainty of being a permanent staff, especially the newly joined staff. Hence, it is undeniable that this may negatively affect the lecturers. Prof. Dato' Asma, could you please educate us on how to cope with this mental pressure? Perhaps it would be beneficial if Prof. Dato' can share with us if the ministries are doing anything on this matter. Please, Prof. Dato.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Amira. I don't want to add more mental pressure, but I have to say this and I have to agree dengan Prof. Hadaini that as I said also earlier, COVID-19 is not a legitimate excuse for you to not to do research, for you not to do research. This is also not an excuse for the graduate students not to come in. I mean, I've been to the university and it's I've seen institutes and centers of excellence and schools totally gelap. No one is coming in. I mean, it's a sad thing. I mean, especially for me at Inform. I have to say this is an institute for research in molecular medicine. There is no excuse why it is dark. Basically, you cannot do this, right? If you because you are allowed to come into the lab and if you're required to be in the lab, so the graduate students and the researchers can all work in the lab and following the SOP. You just have to control the number of students that can now come in. You have to control the SOP, but you have to make sure that SOP is followed. But the thing is, if the lab is like full during the day, you can also do rotations and or some other arrangement because now the undergraduate labs are empty, so maybe you can also now start to rearrange. I mean, basically, not coming in and because of the MCO is not a legitimate excuse lah. So that the creativity of how now you want to do the research, all this is up to you. The more important is that the will to do so is up to you, because this is where we say change, if anything, must begin with you. So if you are not willing to come in, how are you going to be a role model for the students also to now come in? But let me share something with the early career researchers, right? And you may be lamenting to say grant money is not there, graduate fellowship pun not there, and therefore you don't have students. Therefore, if you tak ada student, macam mana nak buat research, right? So for the early career, when you just got back, not having students, so this is, I mean, like early lah, you just got back for what, a year or 6 months, etc. Not having students is not an excuse to do research. All right, because as I said, when you did your PhD, you work alone on a project. So why is it that you have to have student upon returning for you to do the project? All right. So basically, when I first returned in 1986, right, I had to do all the research myself. As Nazalan said, we have to open up our own domain when we first started, and I came back with medical biotech, and there was no molecular lab at the medical school. So basically, I was attached to the medical school, and I came in, and there was no SDS page, there was none of this equipment was there, and how am I going to do my work? So basically, I decided that okay, whether ada student ke tak ada student, I need to go into the lab, period. So that was when I say, okay, this is a huge lab with nothing. So I wrote a proposal overnight. When you first come back, the deans and the deputy deans and the heads of program will usually look at you as the penyapu baru, and as the penyapu baru, they will ask you to do a lot of things, right? And the same thing with me. When I came back, they also asked this penyapu baru to do a lot of things. And at the end of the day, when you start to do events, you start to do webinars, you start to do seminars, you start to do annual dinners, and you start to do ISO, and you start to do this, and you start to do that. At the end of the day, you have no time to do research. All right. So for me, I was very lucky. I had beside me, my colleague was Professor at that time, Dr. Mary Jane Cardoza, who is the developer of the dengue.blot. And she said to me, Asma, for every month that you don't do research, when you get back, especially in the area of molecular medicine and molecular biology, you lose, at least 1 year of advancement. So for every month that you are not going into the lab, you lose even more. So that's when he said, pull your socks together, girl, and move. And so I will remember Mary Jane Cardoza for advising me to get back on track before I lose my mojo. So bottom line is that when I decide that I want to work on something, I will work on it and overnight, and because that's me. I have my own internal benchmark to guide me how to go forward. And I wrote the grant overnight, and I made an appointment with Tan Sri Musa, who was the Vice Chancellor of USM at that time. And I went to see him and I said, sir, I need money to do research. And he said, okay, I give you 6,000 ringgit. So 6,000 ringgit, okay, don't lament. Today you don't get 20,000, you're already like climbing up the wall, etc. I got my first grant in USM for 6,000 ringgit. And that was when I had to buy the SDS page. I had to buy all the materials needed to do my page gels and start my molecular work in medical biotech. But I didn't lament, because it is money, it is available for 6,000, then I will start with 6,000. Basically, you start small. You don't want to say, where is my this machine and that machine? If I don't have this and I don't have that, I can't do anything. When you want to start the domain, you got to start small. And the medical school gave me technologies to help at that time. But of course, technologies they help you, and then after that, cukup masa dia balik lah. So but the thing is, I work alone at that time, because you know why? Because I thought it was unfair for me to get a student. I just got back. I don't even have the bigger picture. Macam Nazalan kata, where is the philosophy you want to teach to the student? I don't even have that, So it's not fair to say, as soon as I get back, I need graduate student. You need to establish yourself first, ladies and gentlemen, so that now when you become a supervisor, you become a good one. Not someone who just make sure your slave, quote unquote, is doing all the work for you. At the end of the day, dia juga tulis paper. At the end of the day, you edit da, and then you want to be first name on that paper. So this is where I say that the mindset change in how you do this supervision. All this has got to also take into account what are you doing essentially for the benefit of the student. So so when you start to have, basically, to me, when you start to build your reputation, when you build that reputation, more grants will come in. As more grants will come in, don't worry, the students will flock in. As Nazalan said, as you build your discipline, because my area was medical biotech, there was no one. I think I was the third one in the country or something to do medical biotech. But the thing is, the more students will come, because you have built a reputation. And this is important, that when you start to build that reputation, when you start to supervise the student, you will give the student a better one, because a better experience. You know why? As soon as the student graduate with a PhD from you, the people nak hire the student will say, you graduate daripada lab mana? And then you saying some name, oh, I tak pernah dengar lecturer ni. So it's sad, isn't it, for the student punya career. So that's why I said build your reputation first and then bring in the students. So before you do that, make sure jadi co-supervisor, bukan nak jadi chief awal-awal, ya. Jadi co dulu dengan a senior, so that you start to learn the ropes, right? And then I agree dengan Prof. Haidani that tomorrow's way of doing R&D probably is no longer 100% in the lab. Some areas sudah 100% no longer in the lab, because now with the advent of artificial intelligence, augmented reality, virtual reality, data analytics, etc., you can see the various labs in US are already now posing questions, right? And then for your research, and then now you pose the question into the artificial intelligence system. Now with artificial intelligence is now making the possible outcomes of what the questions that you are asking, so that now with all these possible outcomes, then only you test them. You can even test them virtually to see whether is the outcome will be all right before you even test them in the animals or in the humans, or actually work physically on them. And of course, as Haidani mentioned, which I agree, you need to adapt. with new ways and new technologies now in order to do research. So basically, research now can be done even at a shorter time. You may not even need 3 years to develop something, because with artificial intelligence, this can now be hastened. You can get the data analytics, because with metadata from all the open source platform, you can now be able to work even faster and come up with the data. So of course, when I'm talking about all this, right, this is of course making more sense to the new millennials, Nazalan, the Gen Y and the Gen Z, who are going to be our future generation of lecturers. Basically, not for people like me lah. For me, I still believe in in the hands-on, in the old way of doing things. At IUM, we had Jackie Ying from used to be from MIT before, but now she's at NUS and Biopolis, who's developing some of the test kits for COVID. So we had her, and she was saying, and we asked her the question, what do you mean by world-class researcher? She's saying that, at MIT, world-class usually spend 70 to 80 hours a week working, not necessarily be in the lab, but they are working, right? They can be working from home on all this computational thing, but they are working 70 to 80 hours a week. So and if you are willing only to work 40 hours a week, then actually don't even start to think about how to become world-class researcher lah. So because when I was at University of Tokyo for my postdoc, I was working from 8 a.m. until midnight. And then even then I had to have permission to leave at midnight, because there was no train to bring me back from Hongo to Hiro, where I'm staying. So basically that's 16 hours a day. That is the kind of acculturation that is there in the University of Tokyo at Hongo campus. So you when you go into a cultured area that is cultured already, that spends 16 hours a day working in the lab, when you go into the environment, mau tak mau, you also blend and come in and do inside the environment. You go into a center of excellence in USM, or you go in and you don't see anyone. And if you wanted to go in, there is no environment yang macam research where a center of excellence should be. So this is sad to me, right? Because then bila this is the kind of training you want to give to the student, macam mana? Because dia sendiri tak experience what it's like to be in the lab, to have the acculturation, the environment, the discussion, etc. of doing research. It's not about you alone. It's about working together. So this is this is the time lah that we need to now have new ways of doing things, and combine with the old ways of doing things as well, because I think the need to have hands-on, to need to have discussion is always there, but doesn't have to be face to face, but the discussion needs to now continue. So in the new norm, for example, companies like AirAsia right now, where with COVID they cannot fly, right? So they have 32,000 workers. So what do? They actually retool, reskill, upskill these people, and then deploy these people to the government and also to companies, etc. So this is something that USM can also do. At the time when I'm talking now, tomorrow is about artificial intelligence, about AR, it's about data analytics and about cloud servers and so on. And as I'm talking, you are in the area that you have no idea what I'm talking about. This is the time for you to actually now learn. This is a time for you to reskill, upskill, at least be knowledgeable about what artificial intelligence can now do to help move your research. So this is also the time to concentrate. So this is where I also would like to comment on what is happening in the universities now. At the time today, we are talking about online learning, all right? And this is where we need now to concentrate on online learning. This is not just about giving your lectures over Zoom, Online learning is more than that. I think Prof. Karim can explain more on this, but this is the time for us to concentrate and change the way we do things. In our teaching packages, to do micro credentials, etc. This is the time to also learn, unlearn, relearn, co-learn and co-create something new as well. So even the School of Pharmacy, MQA had already given the ability for all universities, current courses that is now approved by MQA, you can do the entire course now as a micro-credential mode. So that now in the universities, we are already facing two tracks, academic track and micro-credential track. Or you can take any existing program in pharmacy, as long as you change more than 30%, you can continue to say, instead of online, you can change that part to become micro-credential. So you can even have a program that is micro-credential, that is online, and then there is having to come into the lab because they're skill-based. So there's a lot of things that you can now do at this time so that you cannot say that you're not doing the kind of work you want to do. But I think now you are more busier than before, because this online Zoom thingy has blurred the within work area and home area. Basically everything is now blended, and you are now busier, and it costs you more time. So this is the time where you need to understand what is your priority and put that priority right. So I hope that you understand the future. Probably with the post-COVID, we may no longer have this brick and mortar kind of university learning. We may now go online education, and brick and mortar may be reserved for skill-based or even for research, right? So this is where the time for the university to pick up and actually now form consortiums of micro-credential or whatever. So all these things can be done during this time, and not just say I'm at home and then doing one or two classes and then not coming into the lab. So because tomorrow is about the consortium, like a Netflix, where university now probably need to go on subscription mode. So this is the new changes that's about to happen. So these changes is going to cause a disruptive change in higher education, and I think it's sad that we don't have a minister of education, higher education at the moment, but this is the time for higher education recovery plan that needs to be there, and things now needs to change, and this is new things need to come in, and you need to be aware that things may no longer be status quo. So there is a need for you to catch up and prepare yourself. So hopefully you can now, as a group working together in terms of research, in terms of teaching and learning, whatever, make sure that you are now fulfilling an agile response to change, and not wait till it's too late to change. So I stop for that, Amira.
Thank you, Prof. Datuk. I still remember attending Prof. Datuk Professor talk in Kubang Krian in 2002, I think, if not mistaken. It was inspiring then, and even more inspiring now, to know how Prof. Datuk started a career. So it was in 2002, if I'm not mistaken. I was in Form 5. So me and my friends, we were so inspired by your talk at that time. And yeah, that was one of the talk that, inspired me to be here today. Thank you, Prof. Datuk.
Okay.
Prof. Nazalan, if you have anything to ask? To
Uh,
add?
yeah, well, basically, I myself am very inspired listening to whom I hope will be Senator Professor Dato Asma and become the Minister of Higher Education and Science and Technology. But I only want to add in terms of our mission, right, for the last 20 years at USM. That is to create a culture, to create an ethos that is conducive to learning and research. And the COVID thing turns out to be, in a way, a blessing where you can do more readings during this time and spend the time transmitting those to your students. Excite them, because I'm amazed at the number of WhatsApp groups that I'm in right now, until up to the point of I'm having some kind of a tennis elbow entertaining all the WhatsApp. I'm sure all of you have all the WhatsApp groups with all your students and so on and so forth. So transmit to them and try to acculturate and create that ethos of research. I think some of you may remember during the time of Prof. Asma, not only as the president of Academy Science, but also as the vice chancellor, and also Professor OO, Umar Osman, when we had the late Dr. Paul Deere from the lab of molecular biology. And I think a few participants came from the School of Pharmacy and from other schools, where our whole idea was to actually try to create that ethos that the lab of molecular biology at Cambridge has, where they drink coffee, they talk science. They drink coffee, they ideate and think of ideas. And Paul would say that almost 90% out of the 25 or 29 Nobel Prize that LND had came from the coffee discussion that they had. And I actually visited that place, and it is something that is very casual. Coffee machines everywhere, people drink coffee and so on and so forth. So you can actually recreate that. And during these COVID things, get them to understand the life of a researcher, where you toy around with ideas, think of big picture, big ideas, originality, and so on and so forth. I've been spending some time with that, with my students, former students, now with Dr. Gauss and Dr. Gauss' lab. And we interact in terms of sharing what, for example, Frederick Sanger went through in his phase. He only published 70 papers, which may qualify him as an associate professor at USM, but he won 2 Nobel Prizes. But what is important is what did he do in between those 2 groundbreaking discoveries that he has? So all those are, as Prof. Asma said, little experiments, toying around with how to do this, how to do that, how to do this, how to do that, and so on and so forth. Things that eventually lead to the technology that we are so dependent on right now during this COVID things, genome sequencing. So I hope continue doing that, COVID and non-COVID, WhatsApp or without WhatsApp or whatever platform, to acculturate your students, your colleagues, to create that ethos that is so necessary for science in Malaysia. So I think that the other question you asked is about tenure, right? About lecturers being worried that they have to serve 7 years and then only then they'll be converted to. Well, to me, I don't understand the scenario that is right now, but I sure hope that everybody will understand the concept of a tenure in the US. The concept of a tenure in the US is when you invite somebody of a certain knowledge, you give him the assurance that he developed that knowledge in that university. And that is the purpose of the tenure. It is not to assess the person, but to assess the progress he made in establishing that field of knowledge for that university. If he failed to do that, then he doesn't get the tenure. And if he does, he'll be an associate professor and be there permanently. So let it not be a simple measure of quantity in order to install that person as an associate professor and become permanent. So I hope everybody understand the philosophy behind that. It is well entrenched in the American system as to the purpose of what a tenure is. I mean, the meaning tenure itself is basically giving you the license to stay on that land. So I hope everybody be calm, understand, and just move on with your mission. That is to establish yourself and to establish the domain, as Prof. Asma and Prof. Adani said, the discipline that the university really needs. So that's my comment on that. So I'll stop there. Amira.
Thank you very much, Prof. Nazalan. I like with the term toy with ideas, toy around with ideas. So it's like we have to put our idea forward and discuss and see where the idea will bring us. Thank you very much, Prof. Nazalan. Our last question for this round is for Prof. Hadiani. The mental health issue is not only affecting the lecturers, but also our students. The causing factors may be different, but the impact could be felt by them as well. Prof. Hadiani, if you can share with us on the role of lecturers in handling mental health issues among students, both undergraduates and postgraduates, and if you have prior experience that can give us some pictures on what should and shouldn't be done in handling mental health issues among students. Prof, please.
Thank you, Amira. I noticed a question on the chat board regarding the postgraduate students with different attitudes due to cultural differences. Let me address this first, then we'll get to your question. I have to admit that in UITM we do not have students of different races. This is just Bumi Putra, but we have Malays and Sabah and Sarawak. But I don't think that is really the point of difference, because each postgraduate students that you take or with you take it as an individual, not based on their cultural backgrounds. Yeah? As I said before, it's a relationship that you build, and the whole process is a discovery process. For you, it's a discovery of how you can nurture another individual. But for that student, it's a journey to discover themselves while they are doing this deep work, researching something together with you. So the personality matters, but that is also part of the discovery process. And this is adult learning. You cannot have, you cannot imagine to have an ideal situation where the students just be obedient and follow what you say. If that is the case, then that's not real learning. Okay, so I think just knowing your student, let the students, because your job is only to guide, so let the students discover themselves, make the mistake that they want to make, follow their ideas, whether it's right or wrong, because that is also learning as well. So I don't think there is a necessity to make your students obey a certain set of rules, but I think what is important is for them to realize their responsibility and the reason why they are doing the research. Let them discover themselves as well as the project that they are doing. So just like when we have our own children, maybe the younger lecturers, he doesn't have adult children yet, but if like myself and the other panels, we have adult children, we cannot decide or train their mind. Okay, they do things based on what they think they want to do. Okay, you cannot control that. So the same thing with supervision is not. I think the less control that you try to exert on the student, the better it will be. The experience will be better, and then they will go further because of that as well. In my experience with my students, I realized from the very beginning that this PhD is going to be the student's PhD, and then the things that they're going to learn is going to be more than what you yourself know, because your role is to push them towards a new boundary of knowledge. So at the end of the process, the students will know more than you actually, or equal, than when we start. So it's about letting the students go and fly and just facilitate them. There is no need to control the students, I think. Yeah. Of course, they have to follow all the regulations and so on, but in terms of discovery process, I think you need to let the student have a free hand in discovering what they need to discover, scientifically as well as personally. So mental health. Yes, Students, just like any other human being, will have a lot of issues with the mental, personal, family, and we, as a lecturer, we face this all the time with the students. I think we need to be compassionate to the students' problems and issues, but at the same time, know the boundaries where we can get involved. These students are adult students. Even though we are telling them that we are here for them to fall back on us, but there are limitations that they are comfortable with. What they want you to, how you want to be involved, and no, there are clear boundaries. So I think this is something that we need to respect. We need to respect the students' privacy as well, while at the same time letting them know that we are here for them. Okay, so the issues may come in many forms. Sometimes in UITM we have a different landscape of students, so from all walks of life. So quite a number of times we find students with a lot of family problems, financial problems, motivation problems, family problems, and so on. So I think you need to identify where you can help, or where by getting involved you make things worse. So I think this is really important, and it's probably not easy to a woman, to a mother, because you want to get involved all the time, but it is very important to know when to step in and when to step out. Okay? But I find it very useful if we can create cooperative and harmonious group. Okay? So the students find that they can help each other more comfortably. So this harmonious group that is cohesive actually help each other and support each other. So you are playing your role indirectly in supporting the students by creating the environment for them to feel safe, for them to feel comfortable to work in. So I've always observed that my students benefits greatly from this peer support. Okay? And it's your role as the leader of the group to make sure that this harmonious environment is maintained. Okay? So my students usually work like adik-beradik, of course they argue as siblings are, but they also find support in each other. So, and I pay attention to that. So yes, be observant if they need help. If they need more professional help, then you must be willing to channel this to the professional channel, to counselors, to probably psychologists or whatever. Just be observant, because you see them more often. You can observe this quite easily. Yeah? So I think on one of the issue that I have is trying to motivate them to get to the finish line, because at this time is to sustain the energy and enthusiasm is very, very challenging. So this is where I think some will have a mental breakdown at this point, and how do you bring them back in order to still put the thesis together, put their thoughts together, and bring them to the finish line. So very often in supervising, I find that this is the crucial moment for me. Other than that, I think the key word is always collaboration, working together with different people, learning from different people. It's always that. Okay, so without collaboration, we cannot go very far. Okay. And the new normal, the future, it demands that we have this skill to collaborate effectively. Okay? And of course, in order to collaborate effectively, we have to have our domain, but we also have the sincerity in the heart so that the contribution becomes something that is beneficial and meaningful, and the impact is going to be longer. So I think that's what I have to say.
Thank you very much, Prof. Dr. Hadiani. So basically the keyword is peer support, working together between the students, and we have, as the supervisor, has to be able to notice when a professional help should be considered. That would be the last question for our 3-round sessions, and thank you very much to all panels for the thought-provoking insights and shared wisdom on the topics discussed today. We are truly grateful, and I believe that our audience today have garnered the inputs and ideas necessary to move forward as an academic. We have some questions posted in the comment chat box. The first one is dedicated to Prof. Nazalan. Prof, you did mention that the commonly used term mentor-mentee doesn't sound appropriate. In this instance, how does the relationship should be to create the scholarly environment between senior and junior lecturers?
Yeah. As I said, I don't like the term mentor and mentee, and the relationship should be more on a scholar to a scholar basis, because the young ones will have nice, bright, young ideas, and the old ones will also have some ideas and know a little bit on the background and things like that. So it's basically a merger at the same level, eye to eye, rather than a mentor and mentee kind of relationship. So I think that's what we have successfully been doing at USM for quite some time. And that's how we developed quite a number of areas. And I'm sure if you look at the history of Inform itself, I think, Prof. Asma, all of you are very young ones. And I know the behavior of Professor Ong and his style and so on. So basically, it's an eye to eye. There is no big gun, small gun, and so on and so forth. And that is the same kind of ethos that I mentioned that exists at the Lab of Molecular Biology. Nobody knows that some of the technologies developed that we're using every day were developed by the technicians that became well known. The field, the techniques of molecular replacement was developed by a software technician. The same thing with Coulson. We always remember the name of Sanger, but we always forget Coulson. So not only amongst colleagues that we have the same level of interaction, also include the students as well as your technicians, because they have ideas to move the field. Just get everybody passionate, create that culture, create that ethos, as I mentioned. That is very, very important. So back to how do you initiate this? Think of a good program. Think of a good project. During the days, my younger days at biology, we thought of a project to determine the structure of the bioplastic making enzyme. And that became one of the first paper of Prof. Habibah, if she's around, that she produced. It's all about us getting together, figure out on how to install a structural biology program, and then work on it. And all of us develop from there on. Alhamdulillah. You know? So that is my advice. No mentor-mentee. Don't ever call. Don't ever call a mentor and mentee. Just say that you are a fellow scientist who enjoy doing science together.
Thank you for your response, Prof. Nazalan. Our next question is for Prof. Dato Asma. Prof. Dato, pharmacy is already a transdisciplinary field. When we come to bigger grants such as TRGS, there is a lack of understanding about the trans. Researchers from the same school are looking at the same domain, which is the main setback when we try to go far together. We may be ignorant about what the reviewer is looking at, and I would like to humbly get the speaker opinion.
I think we got the wrong set of reviewers. You know, that would be my first ni. Sebab I think it's very important that right now everybody is working together. I mean, I agree with what Nazalan is saying. You need to collaborate, and that's why I say sekarang ni, when you work together as a team, and as a cluster, not working together as a group. Okay, kalau work together as a group, there's a leader, and then there is a lot of people working on their own little thingies, and then because you become macam mini mosty lah, you know, you give the money, and then you have people now doing little things for you. So that is not what we are talking about. When we talk about cluster, is people all pulling their weight to provide solution to a problem. So when we say that, we need transdisciplinary multidisciplinary to now be able to come in and work together. So from the same school, cannot be seen as semua orang is a pharmacy, right? So but everybody have a different ground, different domain expert, and that's why you're put here in the School of Pharmacy, so that you can develop things in a multidisciplinary mode. So I cannot say anything much about what the reviewer punya thinking, but the thing is, please continue lah. Sometimes this is a new game in town, and then the grant funders pun tak brief the reviewers apa sebenarnya that they want to look for, and as a result ni. But I want to pass the message to the School of Pharmacy. When I was talking to HDC, Halal Development Corporation, they say that they need a pharmacy pharmacopoeia. And this is a challenge that if you can put it together, because we want to move on to halal, but there is no pharmacy pharmacopoeia on this aspect that we can move on halal. So I think Prof Said had come to me before to say, when he was at IPPT, that this is there, but again his grant proposal was shut down. So I pun tak boleh nak cerita macam apa sebenarnya our reviewers, but there is another subject altogether, because nanti kalau saya cakap benda tu dah half a day pula. So but what I'm trying to say is, don't give up. I mean, you're doing on the right track. It's just that sometimes we also need to get the reviewers to also be reviewers, people with mindset of the right track, to now be suitable as a reviewer for that particular project. So don't give up, and continue to do what you want to do, moving people in a transdisciplinary way, but hopefully beyond pharmacy lah, and hopefully beyond USM juga, and hopefully quadruple helix with international participation, because I think that's the way forward. Right.
Thank you very much, Prof. Dato'. I think that would be all for our Q&A session because of the limited time that we have. So before we end the session, I would like to invite all speakers to give some parting words of wisdom for our audience. So can we begin with Prof. Hadiani?
Okay, thank you for this opportunity. I think everything starts from the heart, okay, and it starts with the good intention. Yes, our world is volatile, but our main mission of generating the future leaders, future scientists, future generation has to remain true to ourselves. And if that is the case, I think we will not go wrong. And always remember that the key to any successful venture is always collaboration, sincere collaboration, to work with each other and work with each other with respect. I think with that, inshallah, we will always see hope at the end of our journey. Inshallah.
Thank you very much, Prof. Hadiani. I would like to invite Prof. Nazalan for some final words. Please, Prof.
Keep on doing your good science. Remember that all of you are very special. Be the original thinkers. Blow down the walls. Set the exploration for yourself and others, and work together. That will be my advice. Work together.
Thank you very much, Prof. Nazalan. Working together is the keyword, is an important keyword. Next, I would like to invite Prof. Dato' Asma for words of wisdom. Please, Prof.
Okay, first of all, I want to say be present. That means get involved with a lot of different kinds of jobs that you need to do, because you need to gain experience as you go through your academic journey. So be present. Kedua, be heard, right? That means from the experience gained, make sure you are the voice of reason at the right time, at the right place. So be heard. Ketiga, be impactful. All right, whatever you do, try to go beyond. As you build your discipline, try to go beyond academia and create that impact with the knowledge that you have generated. And the last one that I want to say is that being great is no longer good enough, because COVID has shown that many great leaders, many great companies have faltered when you facing with an unknown challenge. So ladies and gentlemen, right now, whatever you do, try to go beyond great and be a nation builder of substance. And for that, to be able to do that, you still need to undergo collaboration, whole government approach, whole society approach, to now be able to do something for the nation and turn it around for Malaysia and also for the world. So make that difference in your life. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. Dato'. And I believe Prof. Dato' is a suitable candidate to become the next Prime Minister, or
Jangan, jangan. Nazala, you started this. Huh?
this is recorded, Prof. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of the program today. I hope you have found this session informative and useful. And thank you very much for spending time with us today. On behalf of the organizing committee behind the scene, led by Professor Dr. Habibah, Dr. Tiger Rajan, Dr. Noratika, and Dr. Siti Sarah, and including myself, we would like to offer our deepest gratitude to all invited panels, Prof. Dato' Asma, Prof. Nazalan, and Prof. Dr. Hadiani. And thank you everyone for being with us today. Until we meet again, stay safe, stay healthy, and take care of yourself. Have a nice day. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. All the best.